This is war. This is war.
Lay down the armor, pick up my sword. You brought the fight right to my front door. I ain't gonna stop till you on the floor. This is war.
This is war.
Oh yeah, we are back. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis. This is Bad Language. New time. Nay. Yeah, we're a Tuesday show now for Bad Language. That's pretty good because I like the fact that Here We Go, the Steelers show, is another chance to talk about games closer to when they were performed. And that's what we're doing with HWG. TSS. Nobody calls it that, but I'm trying to be cool. So I'm trying it that way. And then Bad Language is a comment show. But I was talking to my good friends, Jeff Hartman and Dave Schofield. And I said, I want Bad Language to continue to be fresh and off the cuff. And just a conversation. And that's when Jeff said, hey, why don't you talk about some of your memories? Talk about memories all the time. Look, I'm not an X's and O's guy, and everybody knows that. But I have an extensive library in my head of Pittsburgh Steelers games. And if you're watching this on a video short, and you see behind me, you're going to see the ones you can see right now. You can see a figurine of Jerome Bettis and Alan Faneca and Casey Hampton and Joey Porter and Troy Polamalu. Other guys are on there too. And it's a statue of the Pittsburgh Steelers from Super Bowl 40. Happened on this date that I'm recording. And I'm recording on Monday, the 5th, 2024. So 18 years ago was one of the greatest days of my fan life. And it was a beautiful day. Because I've been a Pittsburgh Steelers fan a long time. My parents, well, they bred me to be a Steelers fan. And when you're growing up in Western Pennsylvania, and I grew up in Johnstown, PA, I feel like I'm from Pittsburgh, though. Johnstown was only 60 some miles from Pittsburgh. But there were back roads to get there, so it still took an hour and 15, hour and a half. But I went there a lot. Remember my first game with my dad. I remember my first Pirates game. I remember my first Steelers game. I remember my first Penguins game. My first Steelers game was December 5th of 1982. Bradshaw threw a 75-yard bomb to John Stallworth. It was great. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs. My birthday is December 3rd, so I got these tickets for my birthday. I had no idea I was going. I got a glass from Arby's. You hear me talking about Arby's a lot. I got a Steelers glass from Arby's that day, too. It's just so many memories. Things stick out in my mind a whole lot easier. And the reason February 5th, 2006 was great, the lead up to that Super Bowl was awesome. I was divorced in 2003. Then I found my future wife in 2005. And so many things happened. Well, the Steelers had that up and down season. I'm married to a very superstitious woman. And she was not a sports fan whatsoever. Her dad followed the Washington Redskins. back then. She was casual. She had friends that were Philadelphia Eagles fans. We live in Maryland, so she had Ravens fans. I mean, heard of the Steelers, but I educated her on the Steelers. She knew I was a fan. She knew how passionate I was about it. When we started talking, the Steelers went on a 3-game losing streak. She thought that she was jinxing me, and I was going to realize that. Couldn't be further from the truth. She helped get me through those 3 losses. Oh, they were ugly losses too. Baltimore, at Baltimore. Then, oh my goodness, it was a debacle on Monday Night Football against the Colts. They got destroyed. I think it was 28-3, something like that. But Ike Taylor got burned right away in that game. And then, of course, you had the TJ Houshmandzadeh terrible towel moment as the Bengals barely beat the Steelers at Heinz Field that year. That was in December. I think that was December 5th, if I'm not mistaken. It's right after my birthday. So a lot of things happened. And then Bill Cowher came out and said, all right, we're on a 1-game season. Basically 8 times if we're going to win this thing. And they had to win 8 straight games. They started with Chicago. Then they had Minnesota. Then they had Cleveland. And that was the James Harrison game where he body slammed a fan. And then the final game was on January 1st, 2006. And I took my wife there. She wasn't my wife yet, but I took her there on New Year's Day for her first Steelers experience. And she started watching these games at home without me and started watching them win. And she wore the same tracksuit or whatever it was. It was brown and pink. I just remember that. And so she washed it. She's not dirty, but she would wear it every week. And she would do the same things every week. So I took her to the game and she wore that. And that was the Jerome Bettis game when he had 3 touchdowns. The fans are chanting 1 more year. I look over, she's crying. And I found out that this woman loves what I love so much that it's brought her to tears. That's a reason to celebrate. Then we got even more superstitious. We spent every night before the game together. And then I would travel back and watch the game myself. So I actually didn't watch the Super Bowl with her that year. I went off my routine a little bit. I watched it with my parents. I went back to Johnstown to watch that game with them. And they won for the first time in 26 seasons. First time in the Super Bowl in 10 seasons. And it was a long time coming. And it felt so good. A lot of people have said that the second game in the playoffs there against Indianapolis felt like the Super Bowl. Jeff Hartman just said that last week. And I agree. But nothing was quite like that excursion in Detroit. All of that. There are so many things that happened on that run. But when they got to that game, something didn't feel right. And it looked like Seattle was going to take off. People talk about the referees all the time in that game. And that's a narrative that kind of drives me crazy. If you're not a Steeler fan, you're going to say, well, the refs handed you that game. There were some plays that went in the Pittsburgh Steelers' favor. There were some that went in Seattle's favor. It seemed like more in the Steelers' favor, and I'll take that. But they also made plays. I could still hear Bill Hillgrove saying, "This place is a Steelers maniac haven," when Willie Parker ran for a record 75-yard touchdown run. Still stands, by the way. I can still see Ben Roethlisberger getting a touchdown that everybody thinks wasn't a touchdown. But what they forget about that play, that was 3rd and goal when he got the touchdown. If they didn't allow it, they were going to go again. And Ben was going to get in. They were closer. When they'd allow him to sneak the ball, he was golden. They just didn't do it a lot in later years. It's weird. But that was different OCs. I remember Randall L. in that game with that touchdown pass, which was kind of fitting because he was a quarterback. I remember Hines Ward's great day. This I remember more than anything. Ike Taylor had an interception. Ike Taylor was one of the best defensive backs in Pittsburgh Steelers history, but never went to a Pro Bowl. Why? Because he didn't have the hands for it. He didn't have interceptions. But he had a big interception in that game. That was special. And I remember thinking, ooh, this thing could fall apart when Ben threw that interception. And it went back the other way. It wasn't a pick six, but it went back the other way. A long way. But the Steelers were on the doorstep there, too. Where that game ended 21-10, it very easily could have been 28-3. Very easily. There were so many things that happened in that game. And one thing, I am not a Ben Roethlisberger apologist. I won't be. But everybody talks about how horrible of a game Ben had. But Ben made things happen in that game. And Ben got them where they needed to be. And they were not in the Super Bowl without Ben. But they don't win that Super Bowl without Ben Roethlisberger either. Even though he statistically did not have a good game, he did enough things better than he did worse. I'll never forget Willie Parker in that game, though. Oh, my gosh. This place is a Steelers maniac haven. So, funny story. My future brother-in-law, we were at his house. And I'm estranged from him now. We don't talk. But he said, "Oh, I forgot you were a Steeler fan. Some tickets came across my desk. I could have given them to you." And I was sick to my stomach. Actually, we weren't at his house. We were at my in-laws' house. Because the thing is, if you know me, my first go-to is, who's your team? And then I start talking about the Steelers. And he was a Ravens fan. And he offered me tickets to that game. But he didn't have them anymore. He said, "Oh, they're still on my desk. They're just going to waste." Nobody took them. And I was sick. And I'm like, all right, how can you get them? "Oh, I'll make a call." And I know he never did. He said, "Well, the game's in Detroit. You can't get there." I'm like, it's 6:00 on Saturday. The game's in 24 hours. I have a car. I can get to Detroit. I can grab a buddy. I'm going to take you. but I never got them. I watched the game with my parents instead and my sister, and it was fun. And a year before, I was dating a different girl. And she was the controlling type. And I said that if the Steelers ever win the Super Bowl, I'm going to get a tattoo. I'm going to get the hypocycloids. I'm going to get the logo. And she was absolutely not. There's no way you're getting a tattoo. I will not allow it. And I was like, whoa, 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 Missy Elliott. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. If I want to get a tattoo, I'm going to get a tattoo. Well, the Steelers lost that year in the AFC Championship game, which I was at, to New England. So it was all for not anyways. And I kind of kept on talking that I would get a tattoo anyways during that whole 2004 run, Ben's rookie season, because she told me I couldn't. I wasn't dating her. I just told you I was dating somebody different, and eventually my wife. So the Super Bowl ends. I haven't talked about this tattoo for a year. My sister looks at me and says, I knew they were going to win. I have the place picked out for you. You can go get your tattoo. You're going in March. I have an appointment for you. And I'm like, I'm not going to get a tattoo. And then she stopped me in my tracks by saying, wait a second. You always preach about keeping your word. And then she started going on, and I said, stop. All right, you're right. You called me out. I'm getting it. I'm not a tattoo guy. I have those hypocycloids on my shoulder till this day. If I'm at a pool, people are like, you a Steelers fan? I'm like, God, I hope so. If not, I've got the wrong team on my shoulder. But that game has so many memories for me. And I hope it does for you. Was it the most exciting Super Bowl? No. It absolutely was not an exciting Super Bowl unless you were a Steelers fan. For the rest of the football world, it wasn't. But if you bled black and gold, it was glorious. And it was for me. So that's one of my favorite Super Bowl moments. And I'll actually say even more of a favorite moment than Super Bowl 43, which was one of the most exciting Super Bowls in history. But this was better. And why was this better? Because the drought was over. We could finally sing again about the Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers. And I went to the parade. I went by myself because I couldn't get anybody to go with me. And it didn't matter. I partied and reveled with Steelers fans. And I watched that parade. Because you know what? I did not want that moment to pass by and me miss it because somebody wouldn't go with me when I was capable of enjoying it by myself, and I did. I ended up meeting up with friends later. But what a glorious time. I'm calling this segment Bad Memories. But my God, were they good. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis from the Steel Curtain Network, part of Fans First Sports Network. This is and was another episode of Bad Language. And as always, I ain't apologizing for nothing.
This is war. This is war.
Lay down the armor, pick up my sword. You brought the fight right to my front door. I ain't gonna stop till you on the floor. This is war.
This is war.